How can you break into my house and I'd be liable if you're hurt? Like, what? Anyways, um, yeah, so that, I mean, that's just some of the crazy stuff out there. And again, these are at the state level. Again, deportations are at the federal level, but the state level, when it comes, to your property, imagine going on vacation for a week, 2 weeks, whatever, do some European trip or whatever, and you come back and you have squatters in your house, and you can't get them out for some days, weeks, or months because it's a civil matter. Like when it says prime, if this were to frequently hit people at the primary residence level, people with HOAs, things like that, it'd be changed, immediately. But since a lot of times it's more renters, or should I say landlords, dealing with renters slash tenants, vacant homes or even completely vacant homes and nobody lives there, it's not that big of a deal. And then it's not to the point where it's so rampant. It's rampant because it's something that shouldn't be happening at all. But it's not to the point where it's so rampant that, it's just taking over everything where it's like something that needs to be changed right away. But if you had somewhere where you had multiple HOA associations, housing associations, where HOAs where people were having squatters in their primary residencies, then yeah, you start seeing stuff getting changed a lot faster, at the state level or even at least at the county level, right? Because talking about sheriffs being enacted here. But I mean, these are the things we have all these various issues, right? Y'all worrying about, minimum wage getting increased. It's like, can we make it so people can't just squat in your house that don't live here? Like, how is it not a criminal offense if someone who isn't supposed to be in my house is in my house? I don't know this person with no contact ever with them, except now. Please get them out. Please say, no, this is a civil matter. You just got to take it to civil court. What? All right. Again, the bill for Oklahoma, the sheriff could remove them immediately. When this happens in Oklahoma, the process is getting right. Here we go. Civil courts, right? Yeah, it could be months to get the person out. Said forward, I'm hoping we can make this process of removal quicker and cheaper for the landlords. Ooh. I would say, it shouldn't cost. How much should it cost me? I call the police, they show up, they take them out, gone. Oklahoma House approved the bill earlier this month. It is now being considered in the Senate. Shout out to Oklahoma. Manufactured crisis, but Eric Dunn, director of litigation at the National Housing Law Project, which advocates for tenants' rights. See, these people aren't tenants. That's the issue. And if we're at the point where people can't parse, separate, whatever word you want to use to say distinguish, whatever it is to say, there are squatters and then there are tenants, right? And the issue is, can a tenant become a squatter? Two different things. We're not talking about people who had a lease and then they staying over their lease. We're not talking about that. We're talking about people just showing up who've never been a tenant. It's two different things. But you want to say, oh no, this can infringe on tenants' rights. Well, good thing laws are just made up. So just make it up so we're not talking about tenants. If you can prove that you lived here and in short, you stayed over your time, this law is not for you, where the sheriff is coming to take you out. Now, take you out. Listen, the sheriff's coming to take you out. The sheriff's coming to remove you from the property. Now that's a whole different conversation. But mainly the issue you're talking about is people saying, yo, this is a vacant home, and people just show up. And by the time I get to my house to, renovate it or sell it, whatever, we just got squatters in here, not a tenant overstaying their lease. All right, National Housing Law Project, which advocates for tenants' rights, called the anti-squatting bills. A manufactured crisis that exhibits the power of the landlord lobby in U.S. state houses. It's not that much power because all these states are dealing with this issue. If there was so much power on the landlord side, then why would we be dealing with this issue? Let's say people don't want to spend money on things they don't want to spend money on. Not people who have money, at least. This TikTok video gave some landlords cause to say, we have a squatting crisis without any data or evidence or cause for there to be legislation to address a matter that's already handled by an eviction court, Dunn said. Yeah, but if the time that it takes to do it, right? Or on top of that, if you're saying, it takes a long time because it's not a criminal matter, people don't want to hear that, Dunn said. It's one of those things, like, again, I always say you don't want to be patient at zero. A lot of times people only care about things when they hit their doorstep. Right? I do my best not to be that type of person. Like, I don't got no rental property, right? But I can look at the situation and be like, yeah, this needs to be fixed. And, Eric Dunn here, director of litigation at the National Housing Law Project, people who have never lived somewhere, have no proof of residency, no mail there, no license there, nothing, no proof. Why are they in here? Get them out immediately. Call the police. They could get removed. Like, it shouldn't be that complicated. It's indicative of how Eric Dunn is saying, indicative of how well organized and connected landlords are in political circles and how effective they are in getting lawmakers to act on their behalf. Yeah, why wouldn't they? What is the theory? People who can't be in a property should be able to stay in the property? What? People who have no proof of ever living in the property should be able to stay in it? Chris, a transgender woman from Florida, said in an interview with State Line that her parents kicked her out of their home in 2022. She found a community of squatters online and has been on the road ever since. Chris, unfortunately, you got kicked out by your parents, but I need more information to say that you got kicked out by your parents. How old you got kicked out? All different type of stuff. What was the reason for them kicking you out? What was the reason? Shout out to Cardi B. All right. She found a community of squatters online. How you find a community of squatters online if you got kicked out? How you still have internet access? Were you going to the library? Because if you get kicked out, right, of your parents' house, then where you not working. But if you weren't working, how's your cell phone getting paid for you to find a community of squatters online? Did your parents give you a heads up and you found some squatters? All right. And she's been on the road ever since. Recent news coverage has been reckless and could embolden a property owner to hurt someone, said Chris. Again, that's what I'm bringing up too. Yes, the property owner said the landlord saying I'll turn it to a criminal matter. Yeah, that's one of the issues too. They want people out this house. You can imagine how upset, how angry they can be, how much they're filled with rage, and you can turn this into an actual criminal situation where people could get hurt and people might end up losing their lives. And that's the one thing too. If people start dying behind this, which I don't wish, but if people start dying behind it, yeah, you're gonna see some change, quicker change, more rapidly. Here we go. First time I said, "Oh, look at me working, doing better." Chris said, they asked that they're saying they asked that her last name be left out for safety. Okay, cool. Traveling through states, including Tennessee and Texas, on her way to Southwest, Chris said usually holds up. She usually holds up. They got hole here, like the movie. Should be hold, I think. Holds up in vacant buildings, never a home that appears occupied for up to 3 months. 3 months at a time. That's a quarter of a year. That's a whole season. She doesn't feel like she's a threat. I'm reading stuff on some sites saying the homeowners need to protect their homes and that squatters are just violent vagrants that need to be dealt with. She said it creates a dangerous environment where a majority of us who are only trying to find shelter in abandoned buildings are now enemies of paranoid homeowners. See, I think this is the issue. Abandoning buildings like office space versus a home. See, abandoned buildings, I would not use the phrase abandoned buildings in reference to homeowners, right? I wouldn't say you're trying to find shelter in abandoned buildings are now enemies of paranoid homeowners. I would not consider, a home by definition, I guess, can be considered a building, but a home is not an abandoned building if it's vacant. This is someone's house or was someone's house, and whoever the owner is, if it's not the state, you need to get. And that's the thing too. If these properties end up getting turned over to the bank, I wonder what the issue. If banks are having issues with removing squatters when they end up for foreclosure on some of these properties. In most states.